66 million years ago, a giant asteroid was heading straight for Earth. In our timeline, that impact wiped out the dinosaurs and changed the course of life forever. But what if it never hit Earth? What if the dinosaurs had another million years to evolve? Would mammals ever rise to power? And would humans even exist? Before we begin, subscribe to Megar Science and join us as we explore one of the most fascinating alternate histories our planet has ever known. To understand what might have happened next, we first need to travel back 66 million years to the end of the Cretaceous period. At that time, flowering plants spread across the landscape, while vast forests, coastal wetlands, and open plains supported an extraordinary diversity of life. This was the age of dinosaurs. In North America, Tyrannosaurus rex stood at the top of the food chain. Triceratops, armed with its massive horns and protective frill, roamed the plains in large numbers. And giant herds of duck-billed hadrosaurs moved across the landscape in search of food. Above them, pterosaurs soared across the skies. Meanwhile, mammals had already appeared by this time, but they were small, mostly nocturnal, and lived in a world dominated by dinosaurs. If that impact hadn't happened, dinosaurs would probably still be dominating the landscape and thriving for a period of time. And that's what makes this alternate timeline so fascinating. The asteroid never arrives. There is no impact, no global environmental crisis, and no sudden disruption to life on Earth. Forests remain lush, rivers continue flowing across ancient floodplains, and flowering plants continue spreading across the landscape. For the animals living at the time, nothing seems unusual. A Tyrannosaurus rex would still wake up in a warm, lush world, much like the one its ancestors had once known. It would begin the day by searching for prey, roaming across vast forests and flooded plains, following the familiar instincts that had been shaped over millions of years. Now let's speed things up. 100 years have passed, then 1,000. Then 10,000. To us, that sounds like an enormous amount of time, but in evolutionary terms, it is a short period of time. If dinosaurs had continued to live for another 10,000 years, the landscape would still have looked familiar with very little change. Across North America, descendants of T-Rex remain among the dominant predators. In Asia, Tarbosaurus continues hunting across vast landscapes. Armored ankylosaurs still move through forests and floodplains, protected by their heavy armor and powerful tail clubs. Large titanosaurs continue browsing on vegetation in regions where these giant herbivores remain successful. Smaller dromaeosaurs patrol the undergrowth, filling hunting roles that have existed for millions of years. Overall, the balance of life remained much the same. Mammals still existed, but they had not evolved into dominant forms and mostly occupied ecological niches that allowed them to avoid dinosaurs. Although dinosaurs continued to thrive, that did not mean evolution had stopped. Small populations begin adapting to local environments. Some become isolated by rivers, coastlines, or changing habitats. Tiny differences start to accumulate from one generation to the next. But for now, those changes are almost impossible to see. The age of dinosaurs hasn't merely survived, it's thriving. And while the world still looks much like it did before evolution is quietly preparing the next chapter of the story. But 100,000 years is a different story. By this point, the first real signs of evolutionary change begin to appear. Not because of a major catastrophe, but because Earth's environment is constantly shifting. Some regions become drier, others grow wetter, coastlines slowly move, forests shrink, and habitats that were once connected become increasingly fragmented. As populations become separated, they begin following different evolutionary paths. Predators living in open environments may gradually favor speed and endurance, while those hunting in dense forests could benefit from sharper senses and greater agility. Plant-eating dinosaurs face different pressures. Changes in vegetation and climate may encourage new feeding strategies, social behaviors, or body shapes. If you visited this world after 100,000 years, most dinosaurs would still look familiar. But a paleontologist examining their fossils would likely see something different. The first new branches of the dinosaur family tree are beginning to emerge. The process is slow, but for the first time in our timeline, the future of dinosaur evolution is starting to take shape. Whatever the answer, the next few 100,000 years are about to transform the dinosaur world in ways that are becoming impossible to ignore. After 500,000 years, evolution would likely no longer be subtle. The dinosaur world might be locked in what feels like an endless evolutionary race. As prey become harder to catch, predators would have to become more efficient hunters. At the same time as predators improve, prey species would also be forced to adapt in response. Biologists often refer to this dynamic as the Red Queen effect, a kind of evolutionary arms race where standing still means falling behind. Some theropods would probably grow faster and more agile over time. Feathered species might become increasingly common in certain environments, especially where insulation or display offers an advantage. Ceratopsians could develop more elaborate horns and defensive structures, though the exact degree of change would likely depend on local predation pressure. Hadrosaurs might refine their feeding systems further and could increasingly rely on more coordinated herd behavior as a form of protection against predators. None of these changes would happen overnight, but over 500,000 years, small advantages would gradually accumulate. New species would likely emerge, while older lineages might slowly decline or disappear. If you compared these animals to their ancestors from 500,000 years earlier, you would probably still recognize them as dinosaurs, but they would no longer be exactly the same creatures. The age of dinosaurs would still be ongoing, and in many ways it might be becoming even more diverse than before. But among all these evolving dinosaur groups, one stands out from the rest. The reason is mobility. While most dinosaurs are limited to specific habitats, birds can cross rivers, mountains, coastlines, and even entire continents. That ability allows them to spread into new environments faster than almost any other dinosaur lineage. And yes, birds are dinosaurs. By the end of the Cretaceous period, several groups of early birds were already thriving alongside their larger relatives. In our timeline, many of them disappeared during the mass extinction. But in this alternate world, they continue evolving without interruption. Over the next million years, birds could diversify dramatically. Some lineages may become specialized hunters, pursuing small prey through forests and wetlands. Others could dominate coastal regions, feeding along ancient shorelines and inland seas. Still others might adapt to life high in the forest canopy, occupying ecological roles that few larger dinosaurs can reach. This rapid diversification is not surprising. Birds reproduce relatively quickly, can disperse over large distances, and often adapt rapidly to changing conditions. These traits make them excellent candidates for evolutionary success. By the end of our million-year timeline, they may be the fastest evolving branch of the dinosaur family tree. And while dinosaurs still dominate the planet, another question remains. What happens to the mammals still living in their shadow? Now, let's fast forward 1 million years beyond the Cretaceous period. The world is still unmistakably ruled by dinosaurs, but it is no longer the world of the late Cretaceous. Many familiar species are gone, replaced by descendants shaped by 1 million years of evolution. Birds have spread into nearly every environment, while new dinosaur lineages fill ecological roles their ancestors never occupied. Yet this isn't a prediction. Evolution is unpredictable, and no one can know exactly what these future animals would look like. What we're exploring is simply one scientifically plausible outcome. What matters is this. If the asteroid never arrived, the age of dinosaurs would not have ended 66 million years ago. It would still be unfolding today. But that raises another question. If dinosaurs continued to dominate the planet for another million years, what would happen to the mammals living alongside them? But what about the mammals? They've already been around for more than 100 million years. In our timeline, mammals rose to dominance after the dinosaurs disappeared. But they were mostly tiny creatures, small nocturnal, hiding in burrows under bushes or in the shadows, just to survive in a world ruled by dinosaurs. In our real timeline, mammals only exploded in size and diversity after the dinosaurs were wiped out. That's when they evolved into the giants we know today: elephants, giraffes, whales, lions, bears, and eventually us. But in this alternate world, the dinosaurs never disappear. Massive plant-eating dinosaurs still dominate the grasslands and forests. Powerful predators continue to rule the food chain. There's intense competition for space, food, and territory. This means mammals face much tougher competition and far fewer chances to grow big or take over major ecological role. Of course, mammals keep evolving. New species appear, and some become highly specialized, better at living in burrows, hunting at night, or climbing trees. But most of them stay relatively small or medium-sized compared to the giant dinosaur descendants around them. So after 1 million more years, mammals are still here. They're successful in their own way. They're diverse, but they're not in charge. The age of mammals never truly begins. And that leads us to the biggest question of all. If mammals never become the dominant group on Earth, could humans ever exist? In our timeline, the disappearance of the non-avian dinosaurs created opportunities that allowed mammals to expand rapidly. Over tens of millions of years, some evolved into primates. Much later, one branch of those primates eventually led to humans. But if dinosaurs had another million years, that path would become less likely. Of course, no one can say that humans would be impossible. Evolution is unpredictable. Given enough time, intelligent animals could potentially emerge from many different lineages. But there is no reason to assume evolution was always leading toward us. In fact, that's one of the most important lessons from Earth's history. Evolution has no final destination. It doesn't plan ahead. It doesn't work toward a specific goal. Humans are not the inevitable outcome of life on Earth. We are simply one result among countless possibilities. In this timeline, the age of dinosaurs continues. Mammals remain in the background, and modern humans, as we know them, may never appear at all. So here's a question for you. If given the choice, would you want to live on a planet still ruled by dinosaurs? Evolution can be understood as a long series of experiments across vast spans of time. Over millions of years, life took on forms and structures we rarely see today. Many of these designs seem unusual now, yet they once thrived in ancient environments. In this video, we explore several of the most unusual prehistoric creatures ever discovered. Each one reveals how adaptable and inventive life has been throughout Earth's long history. Now, we start with a design that looks chaotic, but is incredibly effective for survival. The first creature appears as a shell twisted into a series of looping, irregular curves that seem almost random. Unlike typical ammonites, it does not form a smooth spiral, but bends back on itself again and again. This animal is Nipponites, which lived in the late Cretaceous seas around 90 to 85 million years ago. Its fossils are found mainly in what is now Japan, offering a glimpse into a very different ocean world. At first glance, the shell looks disordered, almost as if it grew without any guiding structure or purpose. However, scientific studies reveal that its form follows a strict geometric pattern beneath the surface. Computer modeling has shown that the shell develops through a sequence of repeated U-shaped bends arranged in 3 dimensions. These bends are not random, but carefully organized to maintain balance as the animal grows. Each time Nipponites added a new chamber, it had to preserve a stable center of mass. Gas-filled compartments inside the shell allowed it to regulate buoyancy with precision. This meant the animal could remain suspended in the water column without sinking or expending much energy. Despite its heavy appearance, it did not live on the seafloor. Instead, it drifted slowly through the ocean, rotating gently or moving with surrounding currents. Its diet likely consisted of small plankton, which it captured as it floated through ancient marine environments. The unusual shell may also have served as protection. Predators would have struggled to determine where the soft body was located within the tangled structure. This irregular shape can make it difficult for predators to grasp and swallow it. What appears chaotic is actually a carefully controlled and functional design shaped by evolution over time. Nipponites demonstrates that complexity can be a successful survival strategy when properly balanced. If Nipponites looked like a tangled rope, the next creature feels even harder to explain. Monstrum has often been described as something that does not quite belong. It lived around 300 million years ago during the Carboniferous period. You won't find Monstrum fossils anywhere else in the world but the Mason Creek coal mines in Illinois. At first glance, its body appears soft and elongated, reaching roughly 14 inches in length. From the front extends a flexible proboscis, ending not in a simple mouth, but a claw-like structure. This claw carries small, sharp teeth, suggesting it could grasp and hold prey with precision. Perhaps its most striking feature is the placement of its eyes. They sit at the ends of a rigid horizontal bar that crosses the body. This unusual arrangement may have provided a wide field of vision in murky waters. Despite decades of study, Monstrum remains difficult to classify. Some researchers have proposed it was a primitive vertebrate related to early fish. Others argue it belonged to an entirely different branch of life, now without modern descendants. For more than 60 years, scientists have debated its identity without reaching full agreement. Each new study brings insight, yet also raises new questions about its true nature. If Monstrum represents a mystery from the Carboniferous, the next creature takes us much further back in time. We arrive in the Cambrian period, more than 500 million years ago, during a phase of rapid evolutionary change. Here we find Wiwaxia, one of the most distinctive animals preserved in the Burgess Shale of Canada. Seen from above, its body forms a simple oval with clear bilateral symmetry and no obvious head or tail. Its surface is covered with overlapping rows of small armor plates, known as sclerites. These structures created a flexible protective layer, arranged in organized bands across the body. As Wiwaxia grew, it shed and replaced these plates, gradually building a thicker covering. Rising above this armor were long, sharp spines that could reach the length of its body. These spines functioned as a protective weapon, providing a defense against the formidable predators of the Cambrian ecosystem, such as Anomalocaris. Furthermore, recent interpretations suggest that the sclerites may have had reflective properties. Under certain lighting conditions, they could scatter or reflect light in the water. It fed by scraping organic material from surfaces using a radula, a ribbon of microscopic teeth. This feeding mechanism links it to later mollusks, offering insight into early evolutionary pathways. What makes this creature remarkable is how early such complex adaptations appeared. Armor, feeding specialization, and possible visual camouflage were already present in these ancient ecosystems. Wiwaxia shows that even the earliest animals were far from simple. They were already shaped by pressure, competition, and the need to survive. But Wiwaxia was not alone in this experiment. It had a close relative that shared its feeding tools, yet appeared even more understated in form. This animal is Odontogryphus, another inhabitant of the Cambrian seas. Its body appears simple and unprotected. It is flattened and oval, reaching about 12 centimeters in length, resembling a soft disc or a large slug. Unlike Wiwaxia, it has no hard plates or spines covering its surface. Its entire body is made of soft tissue, leaving it vulnerable in a dangerous environment. Along the edges of its body runs a narrow fin-like structure. This likely helped it move smoothly across the seafloor with controlled, gentle motions. The most important feature lies beneath its body. Its mouth has a curved, horseshoe-like shape surrounded by rows of tiny teeth. This structure is known as a radula, a feeding tool still found in snails today. Using this, Odontogryphus scraped organic material from microbial mats and sediment. Rather than hunting, it lived as a quiet grazer on the ocean floor. It spent much of its time slowly moving and feeding, acting almost like a natural cleaner of its environment. This simple behavior played an important role in early ecosystems. Its lack of armor suggests it relied on different survival strategies. It may have depended on camouflage, low activity, or simply avoiding attention from predators. In a world with large hunters, this made it a likely target. What makes Odontogryphus important is its place in evolution. It belongs to the same broader group as Wiwaxia, helping scientists understand early mollusk origins. Together, they reveal how feeding tools and body plans began to diversify. From these small creatures moving quietly along the seafloor, evolution soon explored larger forms and entirely new ways of feeding. From these small grazers moving quietly along the seafloor, evolution began to explore a very different scale. The next creature is larger, more mobile, and at first glance, far more intimidating. This is a Gyrocassus, a giant radiodont from the early Ordovician period. It lived around 480 million years ago, reaching lengths of more than 2 meters. Its body was elongated and streamlined, with multiple pairs of flaps along its sides for swimming. At the front, it carried large appendages that appear, at first, like grasping claws. This is where the surprise begins. Despite its size and appearance, a Gyrocassus was not an active predator. Instead, it fed by filtering tiny plankton from the water, much like modern whale sharks or baleen whales. Its frontal appendages were not designed for tearing prey apart. They were lined with fine, hair-like structures that formed a delicate filtering system. As it swam, it would extend these appendages into the water, trapping small organisms drifting in the current. This feeding strategy required constant movement rather than sudden bursts of speed. What makes this animal remarkable is how early such a strategy appeared. Large filter feeders are often associated with much later periods in Earth's history. Yet here, hundreds of millions of years ago, we already see a similar ecological role emerging. A Gyrocassus shows that size alone does not define a predator. In some cases, the largest creatures depend on the smallest forms of life for survival. After these drifting giants, evolution continued to experiment with forms that became even more unconventional. And just when it seems that evolution has explored enough unusual designs, something even more unexpected appears. This is Diplocaulus, an amphibian unlike anything in modern ecosystems. It lived during the Permian period, around 270 million years ago. Its body resembled a sturdy salamander, growing over 1 meter in length. But the most striking feature was its head, shaped like a wide boomerang with long backward projections. This structure is bizarre, standing in stark contrast to any prehistoric creature we've ever known. Yet studies suggest it may have served important functions in both movement and survival. The extended skull could act like a hydrofoil, helping stabilize the animal as it moved through water. It may also have made it more difficult for predators to swallow. The rest of its body was adapted for a quiet, aquatic lifestyle. Its limbs were relatively small and not suited for movement on land. Most of its time was likely spent in water, resting near the bottom and waiting. When prey approached, it relied on sudden bursts of motion. Using its strong tail, it could launch forward quickly and capture small fish or insects. This strategy demands patience, speed, and precision. Life for Diplocalus was not only shaped by predators, but also by a harsh and changing environment. During the Permian, rivers and wetlands often dried out for extended periods of time. Fossil evidence suggests that it may have burrowed into mud to survive these seasonal droughts. As water levels drop, it becomes a target for terrestrial predators. One of its most dangerous threats was Dimetrodon, a large hunter that roamed nearby floodplains. In shrinking pools, Diplocalus could become an easy and exposed target. Ultimately, however, it proved to be effective in its environment for millions of years. Diplocalus stands as one of the most recognizable and unusual amphibians ever discovered. From this boomerang-headed predator beneath freshwater surfaces, we now turn to armored creatures living close to the ocean floor. Here we encounter Drepanaspis. It lived during the early Devonian period, around 410 million years ago. Fossils of this animal have been found across parts of what is now Europe. Its body was flattened and broad, resembling a shield or a smooth, rounded plate. It measured between 4 and 12 inches in length, staying close to the seafloor. Unlike modern fish, Drepanaspis had no jaws. Instead of biting, it likely fed by drawing in soft sediment and extracting organic material. This made it a slow-moving bottom dweller, adapted to a quiet but competitive environment. Its most defining feature was its armor. The body was covered in a solid layer of bony plates that formed a protective shield. This armor was not simply a structural feature, but a necessary defense. During the Devonian, the oceans were home to large predatory arthropods known as Eurypterid. These so-called sea scorpions possessed powerful grasping appendages capable of capturing prey. In such an environment, a soft-bodied animal would have little chance of survival. The heavy armor of Drepanaspis provided protection against these threats. While it could not outrun predators, it could endure attacks that might have been fatal to others. Its flattened shape also allowed it to remain close to the seabed, reducing visibility. This design reflects a different survival strategy. Rather than speed or aggression, it relied on protection and specialization. It became highly adapted to life at the bottom, where stability mattered more than mobility. Drepanaspis represents an early experiment in armored vertebrate evolution. It shows how even simple organisms developed complex defenses in response to predation. And the final prehistoric creature of this video is Xenocaryx amygdalae, a small hoofed mammal that lived during the Miocene. It lived around 16 million years ago in what is now Spain. It resembles a modest deer or antelope moving through open woodland. Living in the warm, open woodlands of prehistoric Spain, this browser likely used its specialized teeth to selectively feed on soft leaves and shrubs. But its most distinctive feature rises from the back of its head. Instead of simple antlers, it carries a broad, T-shaped structure that looks almost ornamental. This unusual shape has been compared to the headpiece worn by Queen Amidala in Star Wars. Despite its appearance, it likely served a clear biological purpose. Xenocaryx amygdalae belonged to a group related to early giraffes. Its cranial appendages were probably used for display, signaling strength or maturity to others. They may also have played a role in mating behavior or competition between individuals. What makes this animal especially interesting is how recent it is compared to earlier examples. By this point, ecosystems were already complex and recognizable in many ways.